Assalamu alaikum and ohayo gozaimasu. And thank you very much for the faculty and the prestigious university. Keio University, of course, known to us, one of the most prestigious universities here. And of course, I'm given the honor and privilege. Thank you very much. I'm not a scholar, nor an academic. I used to be. And one of my possibly greatest pleasure was to be a teacher, traveling all over the world, at Oxford for a while, and then science, and then finally at Georgetown University. He made that decision to come back to Malaysia to enter politics. So you asked, why is it, what relevance have I got to do with the university? I think to come back to the university to speak about great sages and thinkers and scholars and philosophers, I will keep our sanity away from political sphere. So there is that added advantage. So you're actually helping me, assisting me to keep my sanity away from the madness of politics these days. Now, we are honoring a great polymath, scholar of extraordinary recognition and international repute. Not very known, both in Malaysia and Islamic world, even here in my encounter with many political leaders and business community, some have heard, but most have not. This is the unfortunate circumstances of our times. We don't give regard and recognition to the great scholarly contribution, would not only give an outstanding feature contribution in that field or discipline, but to the community, to humanity, to the understanding between the East and the West, within various religions and cultures and civilizations. That's precisely what's lacking now in the world of politics, when we have probably thrown away humanity and humanitarian ideals, and finally we stuck to realities, pragmatic policies, and political expediency. So I'm honoring Toshihiko Izutsu, an incident I mentioned to Prime Minister Kishida last year, and he was personally pleased, suggesting to send him Toshihiko's probably Sufism and Taoism, which I think is a splendid encounter of cultures and civilizations, to view Taoism in a very positive, enlightened manner, and to appreciate Islam in the spiritual endeavor and understanding, which is, again, to my mind, a major contribution to the study of civilizations, for understanding in the era or times when there's complete ignorance. You remember Huntington, because it's popular, students would know Samuel Huntington and his theory of clash of civilizations. A small article written by Edward Said, the Palestinian Christian scholar, in debunking that condescending racist thesis to denigrate other civilizations and cultures, entitled not Clash of Civilizations. In order to debunk Clash of Civilizations, Edward Said wrote about clash of ignorance. That's precisely our problem today. You talk about Russia-Ukraine or Israel-Palestine, there is so much clash of ignorance, and that leads to prejudice, to decisions that runs contrary to human endeavor. Now, Izutsu's remarkable achievement includes the translation of the Quran. This is a feat unparalleled distinction and a testament to to his profound linguistic skills. Of course, Japanese, extremely fluent in Arabic, to be able to delve into epistemological study of languages. You know, epistemology in the sense that you decipher, understand key terms in the Quran, and understand, unlike a normal translation. I see strength of understanding umpteen languages, which is a rare feat even among scholars today. The depth of his erudition and intellect, and more so, this tenacity of commitment. Scholars are scholars. They can remain academicians, but some would become scholars with certain level of commitment to promote understanding, to fight against excesses and ignorance and corruption in our midst. And Izutsu, to my mind, emerged as a great scholar in his own right, a polymath, and a scholar that promotes that understanding with such conviction. I've never met him. I was introduced to Izutsu when I was young. I was a young graduate from the University Malaya. And suddenly I got curious. Why this Japanese Izutsu sounds like a car? And so I was attracted because of my curiosity. Because in the 80s, what was popular in Malaysia was Japanese products. And people don't associate Japan with scholarly pursuit. What more, studies humanitarian or values, or studies of love for scholarship. What Ali ibn Abi Talib talks about lazzatul ma'rifah. So I would, out of sheer curiosity, I read God and Man in the Quran, which is there. And then, of course, then led on to Sufism and Taoism. I was thrilled. We grew up in a society that was quite familiar with Buddhists and Hindus and Christians in Malaysia. But as a Muslim, of course, I took a lot of pains to study Islam in a limited sense. But the profound scholarship of Izutsu surprised me. His depth of knowledge and his erudition, which transcends the understanding of many Muslim scholars that I know. That's when I started propagating the works, which cannot be popular because it's heavy. Oh my goodness. You take a serious view of this epistemology or Sufism and Taoism. One page will take some, a long time to really understand and grasp. And it will be shameful if you run through because of his sheer capacity to understand in epistemological understanding, which is semantics and terms that will convey not just a translated meaning, but a forceful understanding of the background, the context of such brilliant thesis. So he was able to capture the essence of semantic nuances of the original text. So because of his understanding of both the Arabic language, Islamic tradition, as well as other Semitic, Christian, Jewish, cognate linguistic cousins. So it is a profound empathy and adulation for the original, so as to ensure fidelity not only to the letter, but also to the spirit of the Quran. So it is in God and Man in the Quran. This is must be an old copy. Yes. I used to be a teacher, so you just relax. you don't see me as a Prime Minister. I'm in an odd place. I'll give you an example how difficult it is. I'm just picking at random. It is this peculiarity of the Arab mind that explains both the defect and beauty that you find in Arabic literature, even in that of the later Islamic ages. In short, the Greek mind, if it looks at something, looks at it as a whole, examines it, analyzes it, while the Arab mind goes around it, discovers there beautiful pearls of various kinds, which, however, are not strung together into a necklace. Good luck to you, you can understand that. But what I'm trying to drive at, you can, with some effort and pain and value and love for scholarship, which is unfortunately lacking these days. And I would cast the blame mainly to political leaders who do not promote that sort of understanding and enhance the level of scholarship in our societies. So in God and Man in the Quran, it also attempts to an eclectic exploration of the semantic structure of the Quran, Quranic weltanschauung, the worldview. Izutsu's main argument centers on the premise the Quran creates a worldview that is sui generis through the medium of language, yielding intrinsic fabric of meaning with semantic structures. I'm sounding like Izutsu. Sounds nice, but nobody understands. Anyway, but I have great respect for the scholars here. For Izutsu, failure to perceive and comprehend the semantic structures would render it impossible to grasp the Islamic worldview or weltanschauung. And then there is another great work, Ethical Religious Concepts in the Quran, where God enjoins man to act in an ethical way infused within the Islamic moral code. I still remember the quote I popularized in Malaysia, where Izutsu placed the moral precept as something morally consistent. What is right for 1,400 years ago remains right. What is corrupt, unjust, cruel does not change. What changes is the paraphernalia system around it. And this is a very compelling case about ethical, moral standards in our society, where you have a level of permissiveness that you can compromise a level of corruption or injustice due to pragmatic considerations or political expedient considerations. Now, so to Izutsu, the Quran speaks to us in linguistic binaries. It's clear. To guide is hadayah or hidayah. To lead astray is dalala. It's clear whether you decide to believe or not to believe. But the reason, the emphasis is critical. Now, under divine imperative, these words and many other binary opposites define the existential conditions under God's creation. It bears pointing out, if I might humbly add to Izutsu's exposition, it bears pointing out that the language or lisan, literally the tongue, in the Quranic semantic paradigm is key to the institution of prophecy as made clear in verse 4 of Surah Ibrahim or Abraham. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَا مِنْ رَسُولٍ إِلَّا بِلِسَانِ قَوْمِهِ لِيُبَيِّنَ لَهُ. We have not sent a messenger except in the language of his people to clarify the message for them. Now, Izutsu also delves into this conundrum by setting it against the backdrop of the balance between belief and unbelief, between haq and batil, which is right and wrong. So it's a clear precept. And he maintains that this is a consistent basis to evaluate and assess the quality of a person. And this cosmic balance would be able to guide us in promoting a value system that's pertinent to enhance the quality of man or woman. Now, is it just Islamic studies? No. His work encompasses comparative philosophy. I used to begin with his understanding of the Quran because to find a Buddhist, a Japanese, having this depth of knowledge and scholarship and understanding, which is unrivaled, even in many parts of the Islamic world. So I choose to begin by highlighting his contribution in the translation of the Quran and his analysis both of ethical and religious concepts in the Quran and also God and man in the Quran. But again, may I reiterate that his strength is comparative philosophy, drawing connections between Islamic thought and other global traditions, highlighting the universal human quest for meaning and understanding. By engaging in diverse philosophical and religious perspectives, Izutsu has shown us that the study of one culture or tradition can illuminate the broader human experience, revealing the common threads that bind us all. You see, there's a difference. Here, when you talk about one culture, one race, one religion, you become very restrictive, sometimes fanatical. But he's suggesting that understanding one culture and tradition should broaden your horizon to understand the other. Central to Izutsu's approach is his doctrine of empathy in the study of religions. You study with passion, with empathy, not just out of knowledge, but of understanding, respect, and empathy. By advocating for an empathetic perspective and urging scholars to understand religious texts from within their own conceptual frameworks. Now, for those of you who understand and study history and culture and sociology and anthropology, will realize that we inherit a system so condescending that everything is right from a particular Western perspective. And you have Margaret Mead, Christendom and the Sword. What else? Well, the study of American sociology, anthropology about Japan, which does not reflect an empathy of understanding what the Japanese feel, but from a value system determined by the other. So why is he suggesting that you cannot do that? You want to study Taoism, get it from a reflection, understanding, to immerse yourself in that particular worldview. And then, of course, you can compare. Unlike having a very prejudicial stance towards the other. So, the respect across cross-cultural dialogue. Now, in practical terms today, without empathy, prejudice and distrust among followers of different faiths fester and, if unchecked, leads to hostility and phobias. Coupled with other factors such as politics and ethnocentrism, this lack of empathy gives rise to, for example, fascism, prejudice, racial discrimination, or religious discrimination, or Islamophobia that's happening throughout the world, even in those so-called advanced societies. What advanced? Yes, digitalization, yes, with new technology, but you don't advance as a human person. You don't advance as a human being. How can you determine advance and progress when you have such atrocities and barbaric behavior of men and women? There's no advancement. There's only technological progress. That's why I value the scholarship of Izutsu. Not as a scholar like you, Prof, but as a lay person who has fortunately time to read and reflect. And because I spent more than 10.5 years in prison, I have more time to read than compared to you students. I'm not suggesting that you should go to prison to be able to read. Now, I'm serious, Prof. You know why? Because I reread these works of Izutsu, among others, of course, the entire works of Shakespeare, for example, and classics of Islam or Judaism or Christianity or Buddhism or Hinduism in those years in solitary confinement in prison. There's also the positive side. But I was too busy outside, so they were wise enough to keep me in prison to be able to read. Otherwise, Keio University will never allow me to go and give a speech here. Now, so the empathetic approach calls not only for understanding and compassion, tolerance, and fostering the harmonious and peaceful society. Empathy demands that we listen, learn, and understand another religion from the standpoint of those who profess the faith. There's been a complaint of all. We say clash of ignorance to refer to Edward Said. It's not just the West, Western attitude towards us, but sometimes we reflect that too. I remember reading, for example, works of some Muslim leaders or scholars that said the West is gone. Or using Oswald Spengler's Decline of the West, written in probably 1930s, and then probably some other scholars in the Indian subcontinent say Western civilization condemned by itself is going to. It's not as simple, because while you can also identify the excesses of each civilization, but you must also see the inherent strength through empathy and compassion. Unfortunately, we are confronted with insidious challenges, such as religious scholars and opportunistic politicians who sow the seeds of suspicion and discord. The ramification can be seen in the emergence of elitist groups that reject religion altogether, waving the banner of extreme secularism instead. In the United States and Europe, this is manifested in the morbid and insidious actions against people who overtly practice their religion. Muslims or Sikhs, denying them their right to observe the strictures as enjoyed by the religion. Politicians seize on these opportunities by condoning the discrimination and atrocities committed against minorities. Now, I believe in Japan, while there's greater empathy in the approach towards the study of Buddhism and Christianity, as demonstrated by the level and frequency of dialogues, it would appear that it is somewhat lacking, Professor, in the case of the approach toward Islam. It's more relevant today because of the emergence of both economic strength and also some excesses, deviance within the Muslim communities. Therefore, I commend this university and express my profound appreciation to give me this opportunity to reflect my view, particularly the noble examples of Izutsu, and calling for greater dialogue as well within Muslims, Buddhists, Christians, Jews. Recently, we inaugurated and hosted an inaugural international conference of religious leaders of all faith in Malaysia: Islam, Christian, Hindus, Buddhists, animists, whatever, and where religious and intellectual figures from around the world participated, mainly from Asia, to forge greater religious understanding and cross-cultural dialogues. Now, Izutsu and join the concept of rahmatan lil alamin, mercy to all creations, and the message of peace. It is incumbent, therefore, even for Muslims to be empathetic towards other religions so as to promote and preserve societal harmony. Just as it is crucial for Muslims to understand and have compassion for other religions, likewise, it is imperative for Buddhists, Christians, Hindus, Jews, Judaizers, and others to have the same empathy. Hence, it is incumbent on religious leaders. Why emphasize religious leaders? Because part of the problem is the ignorance of religious leaders themselves. And to propagate such misunderstanding and prejudice towards the others. Translating ideas into realities in a world fraught with challenges will be a real testament to the teachings of Izutsu. I mentioned in our welcoming remark from the professors, to quote Roger Garaudi, one of the great French thinkers, who said, to honor a person and his ideas and his ideals is not to bury the ashes of the dead, but to rekindle its flame. And it would be unfortunate, to my mind, in my humble view, to ignore the significant importance of a great scholar of international repute and consign him to a department or faculty. I possibly will write to Prime Minister Kishida on this subject. Now, Izutsu Sufism and Taoism, a comparative study of key philosophical concepts, exemplifies such a pursuit and commitment. Metaphysical and mystical thought systems of both Sufism and Taoism. Izutsu discovered shared features and patterns despite the lack of historical connection. See, it's amazing. Taoism and Sufism hardly interact in the space of time and place, but the shared features and patterns is unique. So, it underscores, therefore, the potential of trans-historical dialogue, opening new doors in the study of comparative philosophy and mysticism. What Izutsu said in his Sufism and Taoism, he calls it sympathetic intention. I can get the professor to explain to you later. Now, Izutsu's exploration of the epistemological paradigm and ontological structures in the work of Ibn Arabi, Ibn Arabi, one of the great sages of Islam, and Taoist thinkers like Lao Tzu and Chuang Tzu, do I pronounce right? It's okay. Reveal profound similarities. Both Sufism and Taoism are based on the concepts of the absolute man and the perfect man, Insan Saleh or Insan Kamil, showing that different cultures can arrive at profound truth at the metaphysical level through their unique journeys. Our prayers are different, our mantras or zikr are different, but the metaphysical, at the metaphysical level, profound truth are quite similar. Now, let me quote from the great book. Living as we do in this phenomenal world, according to Izutsu, being it in its metaphysical reality is no less imperceptible to us than phenomenal things are in their phenomenal reality to a man who is asleep and dreaming of them. Now, on the perfect man, Izutsu says, all men are naturally endowed with the same ontological comprehensiveness. but not all men are equally conscious of the comprehensiveness in themselves. They are variously conscious of it, ranging from the highest degree of lucidity, comes very close to that of the divine consciousness of the names and attributes. And only at the highest degree of lucidity can the human mind play the role of a polished mirror. Only at the highest degree of lucidity can man be the perfect man. Insan Kerana. Now, as we pay tribute to Izutsu, let us also reflect the urgent need for civilizational dialogue in our increasingly fragmented world. The rise of obscurantism, bigotry, intolerance threatens to divide societies and undermine global peace. By fostering a more informed and compassionate global community that looks beyond immediate differences to recognize our shared humanity, we can create a world where cooperation and mutual respect prevail. Keio University's rich history of promoting innovative and impactful scholarship provides the perfect backdrop for celebrating and carrying forward Izutsu's legacy. By nurturing scholars who push the boundaries of knowledge and contribute to the betterment of society, Keio University continues to honor the vision of its founder and the ideals that inspired Izutsu's groundbreaking work. Now, about the current global landscape, Izutsu's emphasis on empathy and dialogue becomes even more crucial. In a world lacking in compassion and humanity, bereft of focus on values, and where intellectual pursuit is the exception rather than the rule, society becomes deprived of a moral compass, and the upshot is disillusionment, cynicism, skepticism, and angst. People blame the youth. I don't blame the youth. The culture, the society, political leaders have created this empathy for this distraction other than real empathy for compassion, tolerance. So as we honor Izutsu's life and contribution, let us be inspired by his unwavering commitment to intellectual rigor, cross-cultural understanding, the power of language and empathy, and most significantly, perhaps, the primacy of ethics and morality. Yes, we talk about artificial intelligence and digitalization, but what is AI and digitalization without values and without humanity? And that is the challenge that we have to address. Let us carry forward his legacy by seeking knowledge that unites us, engaging in meaningful dialogue across boundaries, and working tirelessly to build a world where understanding and empathy triumph over division and intolerance. Izutsu's life and mind were indeed a feast of civilizations. An example of how the harmonious blending of diverse intellectual traditions can enrich our understanding of ourselves and each other. Let us honor Izutsu's memory by embracing his spirit of empathy, by seeking to understand before seeking to be understood, by striving to create a future where the light of wisdom and compassion dispels the darkness of ignorance and hatred. Arigatou gozaimasu.